The only D I have ever received in my entire life was in spelling class. Probably because the teacher felt too bad to fail me.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode number 2.
Everyone has things that they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can just get one more person
to join us on our hill to die on. All right, so we're going to begin with, you said E3?
Yeah, let's begin with E3. I've organized questions to ask you. So they seem like the big things, but I'm sure there's something that's not big that you probably want to talk about too. So,
for the listeners out there, I'm a pretty big gamer. And given the fact that I now am on summer vacation due to being a teacher, I get lots of time to game right now. I would say that gaming is one of my most predominant hobbies. So I game a lot. I play games more than I should probably, but I play them for the same reason that I read books. I love the stories, and usually if you have the worst gameplay in the world, but a very great story, I will love your game. And that's just a bit into the type of gamer I am. So, Nate, you said you had a couple of questions from E3?
Basic questions that I probably be able to answer, and then I'm assuming you will have more information that you want to expound on, because I ask one question about each kind of game, so you can then expand upon it if you see fit.
Okay.
Let's start with, which Hollywood star is appearing in the new first-person shooter RPG?
Isn't that Keanu Reeves?
Yes. Do you know what game that is?
He's appearing in, is it Cyberpunk?
Cyberpunk, yeah. Oh, good. Wow, good. What do you think about this game?
Cyberpunk 2077 looks like a really good game. It looks like a very realistic game. It is a bit more on the gritty side of things.
It's going for photorealism.
It's going for photorealism. There have been a couple of controversies already, and the game's not even out. It's made by the same people who made The Witcher 3, which is another really great game. They tend to have really good storylines. The one thing that I will always have to say is, with a game like this, Aaron's got a parent.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not a game for everyone.
It is not a game for everyone. I only say that because, again, as a teacher, I know that 90% of my kids will play this game. Do I feel like some of them should wait to play this game? Probably. Simply because there are certain things that they don't need to experience at like the age of 11. There is a rating system for a reason, just to give you kind of a heads up and say to the parents, hey, maybe this doesn't always have the greatest content for your 7-year-old boy. But, parents got a parent. That's the one thing that I would say on that. It looks like a really awesome story. I personally would like to get a shot at it. It's not on the top of my list simply because I have a lot of other games that have stolen my heart for this E3.
It's not going to be a $20 game. It's going to be a $60 game, I'm assuming, probably, right?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely going to be a $60 game. And that's not including in case they decide to add in any sort of expansion pass. With The Witcher 3, I will say that this group, CD Projekt Red, they have traditionally been very generous with their DLC, giving out a lot of free expansions throughout the entire campaign. And then they do have expansion passes that you have to pay for the extra content, but that extra content tends to be like 30 hours of extra content, 40 hours of extra content.
So it's worth the money.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What is the code name of the new Xbox console to be released for the holidays in 2020?
Oh, that's Scarlet.
Oh, okay, there we go. Seems to be pretty hefty.
It seems very hefty. It looks good, but I'm probably not going to get it. I have my Switch. I have the PlayStation 4. I have a bunch of other systems that in my house. I don't need another system, especially with more and more games becoming cross-platform. When it comes out, I'm probably going to be leaning for the PS5 or whatever they call it, simply because PlayStation tends to have the type of games that I like more. They tend to have more RPGs, more story-based games. Those sort of things tend to be on PlayStation more than Xbox. And the only other system that tends to have those sort of things is the Switch. So pretty much for me, having a Switch and a PlayStation tends to be that's my good spot.
Most of these things, all but one here on my list, are all PlayStation, Xbox games. Like only one here is a Switch game. They're all cross-platform, PlayStation and Xbox. It seemed very few were Switch cross-platform to others.
That's the thing is with cross-platform games, with games that are on multiple systems, pretty much they will tend to be on both. There are a few exclusives, but for the most part, they tend to appear on both. Which is why, in my opinion, you probably only need one of the two. But Switch does have a lot of exclusives where they don't go onto the other systems.
Yeah.
Or it's just a better fit for more train gaming.
All right, what will be this new Xbox's launch title?
Probably Halo.
Yeah. That was the original Xbox's launch title, right?
The original one, yeah, that had Halo. Combat Evolved was the original one. Halo, Combat Evolved. Then Halo, I think, is it Infinite?
Yeah, Infinite is the new one, yeah.
Yeah, Infinite's the new one. I played Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo ODST. I played a lot of Halo. But at the end of the day, I think I kind of overdid it back in college because now every time a new shooter comes out, I kind of just look and go, that's about as well as I can put it into words. Well, I say that. There are a couple of games that do have a really good storyline wrapped up in a shooter. I'm not saying that shooters are bad games. It's just for me, because I tend to play games for the story, they tend not to be as strong there. I say that, granted, there are games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which is well known for having an amazing storyline. There are other games, the BioShock games are technically first-person shooters, but they have an amazing storyline. Those sort of things, they are wrapped up in it, but if we're talking our normal run-and-gun kind of Call of Duty, our Battlefield, those sort of games, they tend to have gotten to the point where I've just reached capacity with them.
All right, well, what's the big sequel coming to the Nintendo Switch?
The big sequel coming to the Nintendo Switch? Oh, that'll be Breath of the Wild 2.
Yep.
I thought you were going to talk about the new Animal Crossing.
I saw that. I don't know much about Animal Crossing.
Or the new Pokemon game.
Yeah, I didn't see much about the new Pokemon. I saw there's something Luigi's Mansion just came out or something, right?
They got a release window and a new trailer, if I remember right. That's Luigi's Mansion 3 is the new one. Animal Crossing, New Horizons. From the trailer that we saw, it looks like it's kind of you're dropped into an abandoned island, and you build up from that abandoned island. Then there's Pokemon Sword and Shield, which, it's Pokemon. How can you go wrong? That one's coming out later this year, if I remember right. They are doing a full screen-by-screen remake of Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening.
Oh, okay.
Basically, all the original Game Boy one where you wake up on a beach and you go on this grand adventure. That one is actually being... I believe it was originally Game Boy. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong.
So they're just coloring it and 3Ding it?
Well, they're 3Ding it, they're adding color. They're adding a few things, like there was a design a dungeon thing that they showed off, but it looks beautiful, like they're going back to what we all remember, just kind of feeding off of that nostalgia.
But are they going to do it in the 64 style artwork or in the Breath of the Wild style artwork?
64. It doesn't quite look Breath of the Wild level, but it definitely looks closer because the way the original Link's Awakening was designed was it was screens. Once you reach the edge of the screen, it would shift over to the next screen and then so on and so forth, rather than have like the map go with you. So just the way it's designed, that top-down kind of exploration doesn't work well with the Breath of the Wild style, at least in my opinion. That all being said, Breath of the Wild 2, there wasn't a whole ton revealed from what I could see. There's a lot of people diving into theories and whatnot right now. All I know is there's a new Breath of the Wild coming out, and it looks great. So I'd love to say more about that one, but I just don't know enough about what's coming out.
What will be the new game from Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid fame?
Yeah, that's gonna be. Oh, my brain is just. I know this one, and it's gonna bother me that I can't think of it. I was just talking about it earlier today. Death Stranding.
Death Stranding, yeah. Seems to have some big actors playing some voice parts.
Oh yeah, he's got star power behind him. He's traditionally made some really amazing games, especially when he has basically free reign to do whatever he wants. He had a falling out with Konami a couple of years ago that was, well, it was a bit tumultuous. All in all, it looks like a really good game if we could tell very much about it, because all of his trailers seem so obscure that you're going, what is going on? I remember the very first one. It was basically the main character basically naked on a beach, crying with a baby in his arms. Yeah, that was a trailer. And so for so long, we've been trying to go, what's going on? So I am in the category of I've stopped trying, and I'll just wait till it comes out, until it's already released, and then I'm just going to play it.
All right, what is the new game in the Star Wars universe?
In the Star Wars universe? Fallen Order?
Yes.
That one looks really good. I hope it turns out as good as I hope it's going to be.
Hopefully it's better than the previous Star Wars Jedi ones.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a high bar, apparently.
No, it was bad. The previous ones were bad. Not really much else to say there, but I hope it's as good as I hope it will be.
All right, what is the game developed by George R.R. Martin?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be Elden Ring. It's made by the same people who made all of the Dark Souls games, the From Software. They also recently made a couple of other really good ones, but that's the one that really got their name out there. I'm really intrigued to see how they take this, especially with a actual literary author behind their story making. I'm very intrigued to see how this turns out, because the last game that I remember where they basically marketed the fact that they had a author writing their storyline was an amazing game. Kingdoms of Amalur. That's the last one I remember. It was an amazing game, but it also bankrupted the studio.
Oh, paid the author too much, or?
Well, to be completely fair, it was also their first really big game, if I remember right, or maybe it was their first game altogether.
So they had put a lot of eggs in this basket.
They had put all their eggs in this basket and basically had put all of their money into the development, and no matter how much they sold, they weren't going to make it back. But it was an awesome game, and the rights to that game actually recently got bought back up, so there's a possibility of a sequel coming. But, that's all rumors.
Yeah, this one did seem up your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that is one that I am very intrigued by, and I would love to see more about it before I get fully on the hype train.
All right, who is making the new Avengers game, and what is it called?
The new Avengers game. There's actually 2 new Avengers games, so which one are you talking about?
Man.
Oh, well, no, there's 2 Marvel games, because there is a Avengers game, and then there is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 that's coming out for the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, yes, not that one. No, sorry, not the Switch one.
Not that one. So it'd be the Square Enix one?
Yes.
Was that the answer to your question? It's being made by Square Enix?
Square Enix is who's making it. What's it called?
What's it called? This one might actually stump me. Because I remember the trailer. It has A-Day, Avengers Day, and the end of the trailer, it looks like Captain America has died. And I just cannot remember the title of the game.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to you. It's called A-Day. Marvel's Avengers A-Day.
Oh, so I got full points on that one too. Yes.
This is editing Nate stepping in here for a moment. After some research by Ryan, he found out that the game is actually called just Marvel's Avengers. But I'm going to leave all that floundering in because it was fun to listen to him flounder for something like A-Day. Now back to the show. It seems interesting because you can play a whole bunch of characters, but only one woman, which is too bad. It's only one woman Avengers, I guess.
Well, Ultimate Alliance 3 is also coming out for Nintendo Switch. That one has had other games in the past where basically you get a team of 4 and you bring whoever you want on your team of 4 into your missions. That one has had more women, represented. I mean, we're talking about everything from Fantastic Four to Elektra to the X-Men. I mean, they had a pretty big gambit.
I did see a picture of that. It had even Wolverine on the cover, right?
I think so, yeah. I'm excited for it. I hope they do this well. If Square doesn't do this well, they will make a mouse very upset at them.
It seems like they're also going for more photorealism, at least from the pictures.
Yeah, they're going for more photorealism to the extent of where they don't have to pay the actor for their likeness.
Yeah, actually, because Captain America doesn't look like Chris Evans.
Yeah,
but, oh well.
Exactly. It's get as close as we can and then not. Because we don't want to have to pay people.
All right, what is the name of the game that takes place in post-Brexit London?
Ooh.
This is probably the hardest question.
Is this Watch Dogs?
It is Watch Dogs, yeah. It's Watch Dogs Legion.
Okay. This is exactly showing how much I play games because I know all of these questions.
And I figured this one was like, I don't think he's going to play this one probably. But still, hey, I'm going to put it on the questions.
Watch Dogs is actually a game where you play as a hacker.
Oh, okay.
There was a lot of anger behind that first game because they showed off something really cool at their E3, and then they had to downscale all the graphics when they actually released it. So there was a lot of people with some upset feelings on that one. But all in all, it's not like you should go and drop everything and play this game right now. But it wasn't a bad game. But yeah, you play as a hacker. Some of the things are not done quite as well. And also, let's be completely fair. Playing as a hacker is the same way as when you watch a hacker on any Hollywood movie. They do amazing things. That is not how you hack.
Right.
It feels like people who have this image of programming as you just wail on the keyboard for 30 seconds and then, oh, I'm into the Pentagon.
Yeah. Do you need control of this transit system? Here you go. Boom, done. Like, what? No.
So, yeah, every time I see it in Hollywood or in a game like this, it does make me giggle a little bit. But, suspend some belief so you don't end up playing a game where some guy is sitting at a desk for 28 hours and then is finally like, I now have $12 that I stole off somebody's bank account.
All right, here's an open-ended one.
All right.
Because we're kind of getting to the end here. How do you feel about waiting one more year for the remake of Final Fantasy VII?
I want them to take as long as necessary to make the best product that they can. I have already waited for many, many years for this game. If I recall correctly, they originally announced this back when I was getting my bachelor's degree, so we're talking probably about 10 years ago. And that's not even saying how long I've waited since the original game. The original game came out, I want to say, when I was either 11 or 12. It's a fantastic game. It is, to this day, one of my favorite Final Fantasies. I actually have a list of my top 5 Final Fantasies. I'm not going to say in any order, but these are the 5 for me, is Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, actually. Wow.
The middle ones.
I just realized that. The middle ones. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I mean, I still play a lot of Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMORPG. 15 was good, but it wasn't in the top 5 for me. I would definitely say, though, 6 and 7 are the top 2 spaces, and which one it is has always been a bit contentious in my brain. For this game, I am definitely looking forward to it, and I would just like to say to all of the people at my school, I will be taking a couple of days off for it when it does release. I will not be calling a sick day in. I will use my personal days, but I will be taking days off for this game.
Interesting.
I know. I'm very subtle, aren't I?
So you're saying I need to approve these absences?
I'm saying you need to approve these absences. Don't worry. I'll aim it so that it impacts people as least as possible.
Sounds good. I'm going to look at that release date one more time.
It's March.
By March is a good time.
Yeah. That's why I was like, okay, I can handle this. And my plan was probably just to take a Friday and a Monday off. That way I get a nice 4-day weekend to do absolutely nothing but play Final Fantasy VII. Just a little bit more. The problem was the super expensive release limited edition does not ship to Japan.
Oh, really?
They have a Japanese version.
Yeah, but the English version.
But if you want the English version, you have to buy from America or from Europe. But the super limited edition version only ships from the Square Enix online store.
Mm-hmm. And you can only ship that to an American location. Yeah.
Yeah. And I could send it to the house in America, but then I won't be able to pick it up and play it right when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I also probably don't need the super expensive special edition, because if I get just the regular limited edition, I get almost everything except for I don't get the figurine of the main character.
Oh.
And you know what? I really probably don't need a figurine in my house.
It's another thing.
It's another thing.
All right, here's an open-ended one.
All right.
What do you think about Google Stadia? If that's even how you say it.
All right. So
because we haven't even talked about this, have we?
we have not talked about this. I have feelings about this. My number one feeling is I don't like it. For me, I do like the physicalness of having a disc.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. I do realize games are going more and more towards digital ownership, or licensing technically, because when you buy a game on a PlayStation Network or Xbox Live or any of those things, you're buying a license to play the game. You do not technically own the game. That being said, my biggest problem with Stadia, or whatever you call it, is the fact that you pay a subscription fee for the use of the platform. And then you also have to buy the game. You do not pay the subscription fee and then get to play a blanket of all these games. You have to pay the subscription fee and then buy the game.
Or at least a subscription of games as well, right? I mean, you might be paying for 2 subscriptions potentially.
Potentially. But the way that their billings has sounded from what I've heard so far is it's going to be basically you pay the $15 a month or whatever they charge for their subscription, and then you buy the $60 game in addition to that to play it on the $15 a month service.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest problem with that is you are basically paying a subscription fee for the equivalence of having a system. Like, so instead of buying a $300 system and having it in your house, you're now paying $15 a month for the Google servers to take care of that for you. Okay, I get that. But for me, if Google ever shuts down this service, because, you know, Google has had a very big track record of starting a service and then shutting it down. Because Google is such a big entity, they can be like, oh, we're just not going to do that anymore. We're going to focus over here. Okay. But if they do that, then what happens to my catalog of games that I've bought from them? Given that I have a physical PlayStation, if Sony ever said, we're going to shut down our servers, we're not going to do any more games, we're not going to do this anymore, what I can do with how Sony has their stuff designed right now is I can download the digital software of the games that I have purchased and then disconnect from the internet and still be able to play them. I still have a way to play these games. Yes, it's not optimal, but I still have a way to play them.
Mm-hmm.
With Stadia, because everything's in the cloud and there is no aspect of it that is in my physical possession, it can be taken away from me.
Yeah, the lag has got to be tough too.
There are other online services like this that are doing stuff like this. For example, there is the Xbox Game Pass, I think it's called, and there is PlayStation Now, both of which do this game streaming thing. I can say that I have tried out the PlayStation Now. I haven't tried out the Game Pass one. As long as I am plugged in by Ethernet, I'm fine.
Okay.
But then again, I also have paid a lot of money to my internet provider to have a very good connection.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is in that boat. And so by having an online-only service like this, they are cutting out market share of people who just will not be able to do what they think that their system can do. They are designing it with the mindset of people who live in high internet-capable areas.
So you have to live in some inner city.
You would have to live in an inner city. You would have to live in a city that has a good infrastructure. And if you live in the middle of nowhere, I'm sorry, you don't get to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that just seems...
selective.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a word that was not crass, so that works. Selective.
So anyway, you've passed all my questions.
All of the questions, yes.
Mm-hmm. Even the open-ended ones. Wait a minute.
All right, then I'm going to do a quick sum up of the things that were not mentioned that I will love to play when I get a chance. First of all, there's Borderlands 3. I know I said all that stuff against shooting games, but, Borderlands games are fun. They're mindless fun, but they are fun. Okay, maybe not mindless fun, but you get what I mean. Final Fantasy, there are 4 releases, basically, that were announced. There's the 7 remake. There's 8 being remastered. There's Crystal Chronicles being remastered or re-released. I'm not sure which one technically. And then there is a new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO I was talking about earlier. So all 4 of those are coming out at some point in the next year or so.
What is remastered? Is it just taking the graphics and punching them up?
Yep, that's basically it. Is just they make it a little bit prettier. They're not remaking any assets or anything like that. The remake is of 7 is a complete, from the bottom up, just remaking all of the assets, remaking the entire world, which is really good because, for example, Final Fantasy VII was originally a PlayStation 1 game. Lots of polygons. Now it looks pretty. So Shadowbringers actually is the new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV. The early access starts next week.
Oh, quickly.
Yeah. I'm probably going to be playing that next week. Next, I will definitely say Trials of Mana. I am really looking forward to. This is another Square Enix one. And I'm really looking forward to this one because this one has never come to America before. This has never come to the West before. And when you are a Square Enix loving child and you have played all of the Mana games up to a certain point and then you realize there are more and they just haven't reached you, you are sad. And so they are finally releasing that to an English audience. Phantasy Star Online 2 is also finally being released to an English audience. Tales of Arise, the Tales of series is a fantastic series. More RPGs. This is pretty much me just going off on RPG rant at this point. The Tales of games are fantastic, and I have played pretty much all of them. So another one coming out is just fantastic. Code Vein looks really interesting. I want to get my hands on that and play it. It seems to play like a mix between a Dark Souls and a God Eater, which is, and I know you have no idea what I'm talking about for these.
No, I don't know any about these things.
The Dark Souls is basically an action RPG where bosses are traditionally very tough and you have to think about how to attack them and watch their movements and predict what they're going to do. Whereas God Eater is more of a kind of anime style graphics, but really epic and cool looking weapons, usually a good storyline. And this game, Code Vein, it tends to be kind of merging those two ideas. And so it looks like it's going to be really cool. Other than that, there's always a lot of the things that I mentioned earlier. Link's Awakening I'm looking forward to. I'm going to try out the new Animal Crossing. Fire Emblem, gotta play that. Yeah. So all this to say, there are a lot of things that I need to play, and there's just not enough hours in the day. All I gotta say about that. But I have a question for you. Are you feeling a mite parched?
Would you like to partake of some beverage? Is that what you're asking?
I'm thinking that we should partake of some beverage.
Let's see. All right, so we have here, I think Coke does this every summer in Japan. I don't know if they do it every summer, but I have seen it often anyway. And I actually have seen it some in Pepsi too. And occasionally there's some Fanta beverages that are of interesting flavor. Japan does love their interesting flavors.
Yeah, I would say with all of the Kit Kat flavors I have seen, with all of these various things that I've seen, Japan does love trying something interesting with flavors.
And I've tried a bunch of the Coke ones, and I generally like them. Not all of them. There was a Coke Peach this winter.
Yeah.
And that wasn't bad. So we have here today Coca-Cola Clear Lime. This was at least 10 yen cheaper than all the other drinks on the shelf. So I'm thinking it might not be selling very well. They might be trying to get it off the shelf.
Crystal Lime? Or Clear Lime? Clear Lime.
Coke Clear Lime.
Yeah.
Which, yes, does harken back to Coke Crystal, which wasn't a winner.
Oh, come on. You know that everybody thinks back on the glory days of Coke Crystal.
I think that's what it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't there something horrible in America called Coke Crystal?
Yeah, I think so. we have decided to, on the air, test out the flavor for all of you lovely listeners who don't get the chance to experience the glory that is Coca-Cola Crystal Lime or Clear Lime. I'm going to keep calling it Crystal Lime.
Oh, it was Crystal Pepsi is what it was, I think.
Oh, Crystal Pepsi. Okay.
Here is Coke Clear Lime. Let's see if I can get some Foley here.
Oh. Lovely bouquet.
Actually, it's not that bad.
No, it's not bad at all. It tastes like
It's like Sprite without the lemon.
Yeah, it's Sprite without lemon. It's just a more limey Sprite.
Mm-hmm. It's very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. It does taste a little bit more... the carbonation is pretty strong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It tastes like it has more soda water than other beverages of the soda quality.
I like soda,
Uh-huh.
but I think there's just too much sweetness for me on this. But it's not bad still. But I mean, as somebody who drinks American soda, and sweet is the name of the game. But
Yeah, I can't really say... I actually don't drink that much soda anymore. I am pretty much just a water, coffee, and an occasional energy drink if it's been a rough day.
mm-hmm.
If I do go any kind of carbonated beverage, it's CC Lemon.
CC Lemon's a good one. I really do like CC Lemon.
I don't know a single person who doesn't like CC Lemon.
Yeah, that is a very good, only available in Japan, lemon soda. This is interesting. I think it'll be a good seasonal flavor. It's not an everyday flavor.
See, for me, it's because of how much soda there is in it, especially given that it's summer. It doesn't feel like a good summer drink because I would want to be more thirst quenched.
Less carbonated.
That's at least where I land on it. So, Coke people, talk to me.
I struggle with this one as it is not really Coke. It doesn't taste like Coke at all.
It's not. It's lemonless Sprite.
It is promising that lime juice is listed in the ingredients, along with grape juice.
It's just impressive that you can read that.
Well, it's in katakana.
Oh, there it is.
At least it's 500 milliliters. Often what they do, I've noticed in Japan, and I don't know if this is just new. I mean, this might have been done before, and it might be I'm just noticing it. But, these drinks, they will put like 490 milliliters and still sell it at the same price as all the other drinks. And I'm just feeling they're just trying to squeeze it out of you.
It's because most of the money goes into the bottle.
Yeah. One of the things that really bothers me is the 900 milliliter juices.
Yeah.
Because it's the exact same size carton as all the other liter cartons. And they're just putting 900 milliliters inside and putting... It's like, what is that? There's just empty space in that bottle at that point.
See, my biggest problem is the fact that you look at the cartons of juice at the konbini, and there is the really nice juice that you can tell is going to taste amazing, and yet is only like 400 milliliters at best. And then there is the garbage juice that is the exact same price as the really nice juice, but is like 3 times its size.
And maybe 10% juice.
And maybe 10% juice. And you're like, I know that this is what's going to taste good, but my wallet says that I should do this. And every time I do that, I immediately hate myself.
You know the 99 yen store just down the road? A bit just past the Koban?
Yep.
There didn't used to be any Lawson at the station, so that was pretty much the only 99 yen store in the area. Well, there was one across the tracks where Caesarea is now. But this was the only 99 yen store in the area. And so I would go there when I was single and buy my milk there, the low-fat milk they had. And then I would buy the 10% muscat juice that they had for sale because it was the sweetest thing and it was great. But yeah, 10% juice. I'm sure it's horrible for you. I'm sure it's all sugar. But yeah, that was one of my favorite purchases, and I would get that frequently because it's only a liter, so it wouldn't last too long.
I just realized that for anyone who would listen to this and doesn't live in Japan, we just rattled off about a dozen things that they will have no idea what we're talking about. It just makes me laugh.
Caesarea.
Koban.
Lawson.
For those of you who haven't figured it out yet, We live in Japan.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Japan,
Speaking of Japan, Tokyo Disneyland.
we live near Tokyo Disneyland.
Ish.
Near-ish, right? It's only the next state over, which is not in Tokyo, but anyway, Tokyo Disneyland, not in Tokyo.
Yeah. Tokyo Disneyland, totally in Tokyo, and by Tokyo we mean Chiba.
Right. Well, it is just across the river from Tokyo. It is as close to Tokyo as you can get and not be in Tokyo.
So what I'm thinking is Tokyo needs to buy out the land from Chiba just so it can really be called Tokyo Disneyland. Otherwise, it should really just admit it and call itself Chiba Disneyland.
Or Japan Disneyland or something. It is kind of funny.
But if they call it Japan Disneyland, then Universal Studios will probably get up in a fuss.
It'll be interesting when Universal Studios has the second campus in Japan. But anyway, it is surprising to me at how often I will do some research and say, where should my family go? And when you look at the bottom line, Tokyo Disneyland is often the cheapest option. Like whether going overseas or going to another area of Japan, Tokyo Disneyland becomes one of the cheaper locations. Often. It is not always, but often it is. Because we do find ways to do it very cheap. So that is quite interesting to me.
Keep in mind, anywhere you go, you are paying for a number of people.
Yeah, it is true. I don't know how to compare this to the American versions at all. I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland in America.
I have, but I don't remember it. I was at an age where other people paid for everything for me.
Mm-hmm. From what I can see, Disneyland and Disney Sea here in Tokyo are much smaller than the ones overseas. But to me, that's fine. I mean, I've looked sometimes when we go back to America, I've said, oh, what if we go to, I think I was looking at Florida for a few days, but the things are so huge. It just overwhelms me. Even just Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea here seem to be big enough to me that I don't need anything bigger.
You're preaching to the choir. When I see a lot of people, I tend to try to hug walls as much as I can.
Mm.
Tokyo Disneyland is pretty much my limit. We get much bigger than that, much more crowded than that. I tend to not enjoy myself as much as I could.
Well, this time we did the 2-day pass again, which is a pretty nice discount. But I am realizing that the 2-day pass discount is the same price as 2 days worth of Tokyo resident discounts. So if you go to the convenies here in our area, you can get a discounted ticket to Disneyland at their ticket machines there because we're in Tokyo. If you buy 2 separate days there, it would be the same price as the 2-day pass. So it doesn't really save any money for us. It does if you did 3 days, but the only real big thing is you just do it consecutively if you do the 2-day pass.
Got it.
Which is not bad. Again, looking for discounts. This time we went to Tokyo Disney Sea first, which works better because I drove there this time. If you take the trains and you're doing a 2-day pass and you're staying overnight at a local hotel there, I would recommend doing Disneyland first because the trains drop you right off in front of Disneyland. And if you're staying at a hotel, the hotel will drive you to Disney Sea easier than it would be to take the trains to Disney Sea. You can do it. It's just more train transfers. I mean, again, part of the problem I have with Disneyland in my head is I always try to make our trip as efficient as possible, which I just got to let go of sometimes. So yeah, some of these tips are like, yeah, I'm talking about squeezing 5 more minutes out of the day because the trains drop you off at Disneyland. It's really not that important.
And we all know that families love it when you are focused on efficiency of trips.
Yes. This trip, very frequently, I needed to sit back and said, you know what? I can sit down and wait for 5 minutes here. There were a few times where my wife nicely reminded me, just wait. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. We can just wait. And we do stay at a hotel down there, but even my wife was saying this time, and I think she's definitely winning me over, and of course she's right. We don't need to stay at a hotel. Just drive back if we want to go a second day in a row, which we don't even need to do. Next time we'll just maybe separate them into 2 different trips. Just drive down again the next day. Even this time, now there was extenuating circumstances, but this time we arrived later at the park when we stayed at the hotel than we would have if we had driven. Now, there's circumstances. Because we've stayed at the official Disneyland hotel, they give you a ticket to enter the park early. And oh boy, would I love to use that sometime, because you just go to the big rides right away and ride them. This time when the guy gave it to me, I accepted it at the counter, but I knew for a fact, even when I accepted it, that there's no way we're going to be as efficient enough to get there early enough to use that ticket. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And definitely we weren't. There were circumstances.
Yeah, it happens.
One of the interesting things here in this Disneyland, I think the fast passes work differently here than they do in America. I don't quite get the system in America, but I do understand the system here. You can go to a fast pass machine and you can pick up a fast pass, and that will then allow you to skip most of the line and go ride that ride at the time that is printed on the fast pass ticket. Now you see ahead of time what the times will be printed, so it allows you to skip most of it. It does lock you in. You can't get another fast pass until either you've used your fast pass or a certain amount of time has lapsed. It depends on the fast pass you get. If your fast pass is much later in the day, it will allow you to use your tickets to get another fast pass, like after 3 hours or something like that. But it does lock you in. You can't just go around the park and get all fast passes. Usually speaking, it's one at a time. Not a bad system. We got, what did we get fast passes for? I don't think we got any fast passes. Oh yes, no. Disney Sea, this time we went to the new Nemo Sea Rider ride, and we got a fast pass before we entered the line. We entered the line, rode the ride, came out, and did the fast pass right away. We just basically did the ride twice, which is kind of neat because it's like the Star Wars ride, similar, and they have different stories that just randomly run, I guess. So the second time we rode the ride, it was even a different ride. So that's kind of nice. So I liked that. I think what made it a successful trip at Disney Sea this time for us was my daughters really wanted to ride some of the faster rides, and so we rode Indiana Jones for the first time. And it's been a long time since I've ridden Indiana Jones. I think I rode it when I first came back in 2005, when I went with friends back then. So I think it's been a long time since I've ridden that ride, and it's quite fun. So actually, it was funny. My oldest daughter introduced it to me, said, I want to do the ride with the song that plays in Yauco. Yauco being the supermarket here.
Yeah.
And they play Indiana Jones as background music in that store. She recognized it as that. Like, I want to do that one. You know, she doesn't know the movie, haven't seen the movie, but she wants to ride that ride. So
she hasn't seen the movie?
No, not Indiana Jones yet. She's not old enough quite yet. We can wait a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, in retrospect, probably not the most child-friendly movie.
Well, one of the nice things is they were afraid when the stone was rolling toward us. Now, of course, I knew there was going to be a way out, but they didn't know that. So they were like, oh my goodness, the stone is rolling toward us, right? So that was pretty good. That's a neat part of the ride. Doing that ride made it successful. I did want to do the Raging Spirits roller coaster, possibly with them. It has a 360-degree loop in it. But that road broke down in the middle of the day, and it didn't seem to ever get fixed while we were there, which is too bad. So that is too bad. But we did a whole bunch of other rides that they enjoyed.
Good.
So I think that worked. We had a pretty successful Disney Sea Day. The very end, we did the Toy Story ride. Have you done the Toy Story ride?
I have not. I've been to Tokyo Disney World once, and I hate to say it, it was about 10 years ago now.
You haven't been since?
Yeah, I have not. When I was originally studying abroad back in my undergrad days, my senior year was actually in Chiba, and some of my friends and I, we went out to Tokyo Disneyland one day, and that was it. Since I've come back, I have not gone again.
So have you ever been to Disney Sea at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
That day, we went to Tokyo Disneyland and then transferred to Tokyo Disney Sea at the second half of the day.
You can do that.
At least you could then. I don't know if they've changed the rules.
No, you might be able to. I haven't never tried that. I know that if you got a 3-day pass compared to our 2-day pass, if you get a 3-day pass, I know that you can flip parks on the 3rd day. But I haven't looked into it in 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, I don't remember what we did, but I do remember that we went to both parks on that same day. And yeah, I mean, it was fun. I've just never been a huge amusement park person. But I mean, I enjoyed myself.
We do these amusement parks more because of our family now.
Yeah.
I like these parks more because my kids have a lot of fun. If I was going myself, I don't think I would have as much fun.
Oh yeah. Some of our coworkers go every year. So I get the appeal. It's not usually been on the top of my list.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I usually don't like being in large crowds that often.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are in a large crowd underneath a very hot sun usually, and my pale skin does not like that, no matter how much sunscreen I put on, it tends to be a fun day, but at the end of the day, I am beaten, exhausted.
Yeah, we did pretty well with shade this time. It was pretty sunny both these days that we went, but we did pretty well staying in the shade. I usually get burnt, but this time I didn't, so that worked out well.
Yeah.
So the Toy Story ride has only been there for about 3 years, and when it opened, it was hugely popular.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you go, you can just see huge line capacity. And it was pretty busy the other day, too. We saved it for the end of the day because the line never got shorter. The Toy Story ride is a neat ride because you wear 3D glasses and you're shooting at objects on screens. And it is one of the best shooting games that they have in Disneyland. There's two other ones. There's two more in Disneyland,
Mm-hmm.
Monsters Inc. and Buzz Lightyear. But Toy Story, well, I like this one the best. And my wife beat me the other day. So close. She had 119,000. I had 118,000, which aren't excellent scores, but she definitely beat me.
I'm just thinking to myself, jumping back topics a small bit. Earlier this year, a game came out called Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Hearts is a fun game made by Square Enix that merges the worlds of Square and Disney.
Mm-hmm.
What they added in this game, amongst many other things, but they added the ability to do attraction attacks, basically, where you push a button and suddenly you are riding a roller coaster and attacking enemies whilst riding a roller coaster. But but what you're making me think of is there is one where it seems where you're basically riding around in like this little cart that has a laser gun on the front that you use to shoot. So it sounds very similar to that.
Yeah. The Toy Story one is a little bit more like you're firing a cannon
Mm-hmm.
and shooting at carnival things like dishes and balloons, things like that. The Buzz Lightyear one is a little bit more laser. In the Monsters Inc. one, you're shining flashlights at monsters. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Toy Story is one of the best rides in Disney Sea, but the line is long.
Well, if it's the best, then yeah, of course the line's going to be long, I guess.
I have an app that has the wait times on it. It wasn't the official app, but it loads pretty quickly, and it's not very flashy. Probably that's why it loads pretty quickly. So I do like that one. The second day I downloaded, after signing into the Japanese store, I downloaded the official Tokyo Disneyland app, and it has huge graphics that have to load every time, and it forgets the park you're in every time, so you have to pick the park. It was much nicer to look at, but it took forever to load every time.
I'm gonna voice my complaint as well about the official apps in general, because not just Disney, but Tokyo Game Show does the same thing every year where they have an official guidebook app so that you can know when certain shows are going on. And it takes forever to load that stinking thing because A, it's built so bulky, but also inside locations like that, since there's so much going on in a enclosed space, usually you can get no signal whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, that too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how it was at Disney, but I mean, signal-wise.
Most of the time it's pretty good. One or two times I was trying to send some things to my wife in texts and it didn't go through because I was in a line. I was in an enclosed line, one of the lines where you're in a building. And that had a hard time, but most of the time I was okay. So one of the things that I first found, and one of the reasons why what got us into Disney as a vacation area, was there's a hotel that was very cheap in the area that catered to families coming to Disney. So much so that like we could get our daughters' bottles washed when we were feeding our daughters through bottles still. There was a whole bunch of very family-focused services that hotel put forward. And it was a Tokyo partner hotel at the time, so it had a bus service. But since then, the Tokyo Disney Resort actually bought the hotels. It's a pair of hotels, and they bought them. It is now refurbished to be nicer. The prices have gone up a little bit, Depends on the time of year, but the prices have gone up a little bit. But it is now an official hotel, so that's kind of nice. There are other partner hotels in the area that I was actually kind of hoping to try out this time. I was hoping to stay at the Mitsui Garden Hotel this time, but actually it was more expensive than the official Disney hotel, which surprised me. I was expecting the Mitsui Garden to be cheaper. Oh well, so I stayed at the official hotel because it was cheaper. I was again impressed with parking at Disney Sea. Parking at Disney Sea is most excellent. They have a fairly large structure right next to the park. And I guess because we arrived on the first day fairly early, we got into the structure easily, and then we're just pretty much right into the park. That was very slick. The second day, and the reason why we were late getting out was because we had delayed our trip because my daughter got sick. We were hoping to go Tuesday, Wednesday, but my middle daughter got sick, so we delayed it to Wednesday, Thursday so that she could recover in time. But apparently she passed on the sickness to my first daughter, who got sick on the second day. We're invested in this trip already. So anyway, most of the way through the days, I'm like, okay, we're going to have to leave in the next hour because she's just feeling too sick. But we were able to stay most of the day. She was a trooper, and she stayed pretty much taking naps in one of the restaurants with my wife most of the time, and then was able to tough it out for a few rides at the very end. But because of that, so we got to Disneyland fairly late because I went to the local drugstore from the hotel, which is nice. I went to the local drugstore, picked up some medicines, and we made sure we had breakfast all squared away first. So we arrived later than I expected. But because we arrived later than expected, we were at like a parking lot far out with the car. So I was like, we didn't arrive early enough to get in the structure or early enough to get in one of the first two lots. They put us way out. And so we talked to the parking attendant, because they got people all over the parking lot. Quite interesting. And he's like, oh, yeah. He said, well, I can't move you here. You'll have to exit the lot and re-enter to get back. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll exit the lot and re-enter. Of course, exiting the lot, it wasn't just an easy thing. I guess I wasn't at the end, because I guess I was halfway at the end, because it took forever to get out of the lot. And then you have to go around the block. And then I made a wrong turn and went over the river into Tokyo. And then worked our way back. So we killed another 10 minutes driving in circles. And we went back to the same guy on check-in, and he's like, oh yeah, your daughter can't walk. Let me give you a blue card, which was most excellent, because that put us in the handicap parking lot. And we parked there, which was great. We were so close. And actually, one of the funny experiences there, too, is he gave us the blue card. They waved us on. That apparently signaled to all the parking attendants that, we get this special lot. And we get to the second attendant who is waving us on, and we say, I think we're going to a different lot. And he's like, oh. And actually, we spoke to him in Japanese, and then he starts responding to us in English. And I'm like, my goodness, even the parking attendants speak English. He's overqualified for that job. Give him a pay raise. But yeah, he's telling us, oh yeah, you're on the way. You're going to the Tinkerbell parking lot, I guess. So I was like, oh, okay, the Tinkerbell parking lot, great. So yep, we parked real nice and close. And then my daughter only had to walk a little bit. And then we were able to rent a wheelchair right in there, which was very nice. Actually, it's only 500 yen for the whole day. Wow. So I was very pleased with that price. If you're renting a baby stroller, it's 1,000 yen. A wheelchair for 500 yen, I was very pleased with that.
So what you're saying is, if you're divided between needing a baby stroller or maybe they can fit into a wheelchair, go with the wheelchair?
Oh, go with the wheelchair. They even have kid-sized wheelchairs. Quite interesting. Okay, you can get... you don't get too much special treatment with wheelchairs. To get the ultimate treatment, we found out later on that you do have to have another blue card, not just the one from the parking lot. You do have to have another blue card, which probably the same kind of blue thing that you have on, cars that say you're really handicapped, right? Like some other kind of blue card. So we didn't get ultra special treatment with the wheelchair, but we did get some notice. Mm-hmm. In the end, I think it was a pretty successful trip. My middle daughter rode for the first time Big Thunder Mountain on our last trip. And she rode it again this time. That was one where I got a fast pass for that. And again, because I had 5 tickets and I knew not all of us were riding it, I ended up only getting 3 fast passes just in case. I only got 3 thinking that I could get a fast pass with the other tickets I didn't use on a different ride. I didn't end up doing that, but still, I was like, okay, I'm only going to get 3. I did do the lottery for the show because the musical number that they have there. And I entered the lottery for that and actually won tickets to a fairly decent seat in that arena. If we stay there that long, that was also another thing. Like, well, if we stay till this time, maybe we do this, figuring we might go. But so the evening was starting to roll around. So we're like, okay, the sun's going down. It's getting cool enough. We went to Small World, because that's a ride that all of my family likes. And we're like, okay, she can't walk that much. What can we do? They asked us if we had this other special blue card, and we're like, no, we don't have that. They're like, fine, why don't half of you wait in line, and then, one parent drive the wheelchair through the exit to the spot, and then wait till the rest of your family catches up and then go in. I guess if you have the blue card, you just can go straight through the exit and get right on the ride. But we're like, fine. We don't mind waiting. We're not trying to cheat anybody here.
Yeah.
We just don't want to walk is all. We just don't want her stand in line for, again, it was only a 10-minute wait, but still, we didn't want her standing in line for 10 minutes.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we got on that ride, no problem. Then we went to the Peter Pan ride, and this ride has a much thinner line, like the fences that you walk through is much thinner. The wheelchair fits through most of it, but not through the very last section. We were looking at the time, and we're like, okay, this is a 30-minute wait. The show starts at 6:40. They tell you to get there by 6:30. It was 6 o'clock, so if we get on the Peter Pan ride, we might not be able to go to that musical number. So I'm like, okay, you know what? The rides are more important. We're just going to do the ride. We're here already. It's another 10-minute walk across the park to get to the show, so we're just going to do the ride. As we were moving through the line, I timed each section. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're not going to. By the time we get to the front of the line, it'll be 6:30. It was a 30-minute wait. They were correct. I don't think we're going to make this. And in my head, I'm thinking, unless God intervenes, we're not going to make this. This is fine that we're not going to make it.
Yeah.
And then we get to the part where it's thin, and the lady says, okay, now you've waited long enough. You can come up to the end. So we skip the whole last 10 minutes of the line because the wheelchair doesn't fit. So I was like, oh, okay, sure, we'll do that. So yeah, we waited in line for 20 minutes. And then after that, they skipped us to the front of the line. I was like, oh, that was very nice. So then we did the ride, came out at 6:25, had 5 minutes walk across the park, and got to the show in time. So
they basically said, you served your time.
Exactly. I was very surprised. I was like, oh, yeah, I was expecting to push the wheelchair there the whole way, which was fine. I mean, I wasn't expecting any special treatment. But then they're like, oh, okay, the wheelchair doesn't fit through the rest of the maze here. You're going to have to come to the front of the line. I'm like, okay then. Yeah. And actually what I expected again was that my wife would stay in the line and that I would push the wheelchair to the exit and wait for my wife to come. But they're like, no. The whole family is going to come to the front of the line. I'm like, oh, very interesting. So, yeah, we made it to the show. And then right after the show, after I used the Big Thunder Mountain Fast Passes, I had gotten Fast Passes to the Buzz Lightyear, which was available right after the show. We did Buzz Lightyear ride, which was a good one. And then we did the parade at the end. So yeah, in the end, we actually had a fairly successful day, all things considered.
Sounds like a really full day.
Yeah, I probably pushed the efficiency a little too hard. Yeah, we did very well. Luckily, my wife was slowing me down most of the time. We actually left the park to eat dinner this time, saving a bunch of money, probably. To me, it is funny how I take efficiency, like in Disneyland, and I really, like, how can you get the cheapest? Anyway, it is probably a problem of mine.
Optimize everything.
I think one of the things that really enthralled me about Disney earlier on was the efficiency of Disney itself. You know, think of how many ice pops they sell per hour, right? They don't all fit in that little wagon.
No.
How do they get more ice pops to the wagon? And you do see them driving carts around. And I saw at least 3 or 4 carts. But there's got to be a drop somehow underneath the cart that refills them underground. Unless they're really efficient in how they stack those carts with ice pops. And maybe they really are.
Or maybe it is when they get to a certain point in the day, because usually they actually have it all timed out where they go, at this point in the day, usually I'm starting to run low. So maybe they have some people who their job is at this time of the day, you deliver this here. At this time of the day, you deliver this here.
I think so. I just don't see enough deliveries to account for all the carts they have. But maybe they're just doing it when I'm not seeing it. It must be they're just doing it when I'm not seeing it.
Yeah,
I do think there are underground paths, but I don't think there's drops underneath the wagons.
I mean, it's possible, but there's only one way to find out. Be invited by the mouse.
Yeah. It is interesting seeing the road running right through Disney Sea from Google Maps. I'm sure Disney Sea is not terribly pleased with the bird's eye view that Google Maps gives you. But there's a road running right through the middle of Disney Sea that when you're in the park, you can't see it at all. Like, they do a very good job of obscuring it. But since seeing it in Google Maps and going to the park a few times and studying, I'm like, yep, here's the road right here, running right behind this wall. quite interesting.
Yeah. Seeing that bird's eye view destroys the illusion of magic.
Once I saw it in Google Maps and realizing that Disney Sea is really, it's shaped like a lowercase r, but all the maps draw it as a straight up and down thing. Disney Sea is the worst to cross the park. If you're walking from Jasmine's ride to Toy Story, which is like complete opposite corners, it's like a 20-minute walk. It's horrible. But I crossed Disneyland 2 days ago in no time, a few times. I went from where my daughter was stationed in Tomorrowland to Big Thunder Mountain in like 5 minutes. It's not quite exact opposites, but it's pretty close. And I did that, in less than 5 minutes during a parade time where I had to walk only in certain spots because they wouldn't let me cross in certain areas. So yeah, I walked there, got the fast passes for that, went and got the show tickets at another spot in Tomorrowland, all within like 10 minutes. And yeah, I mean, I was walking pretty quick in the heat of the day, so I got back pretty sweaty. But still, like, you can cross that park very quickly. But Disney Sea, there's no way. It's like 20 minutes to cross the park.
I did notice there were a couple of days that you hit 600 this week.
Yes, one of the days I hit 600 this week was the Disneyland day. But I did also run that morning, too. That's part of the reason.
I'm just going to go with, yeah, it was Disney. These things happen. All right.
Let's get to your name.
So before we get into this, of course, there will be spoilers. We are going to talk about the full length of the story. So if you haven't watched Your Name, turn off the podcast or you're going to get spoiled.
Yes, go watch it first. Please do.
Go watch it first. It's a fantastic movie. So you can join in to our joy with this. Go watch the movie. All right. I'm just going to say, in watching it the second time, or not the second time, but again, because this is not my second time watching this. This is the multiple time watching it. But I really like this movie. But in watching it again, I completely forgot that the beginning of the story, the beginning of the movie, is actually the end of the story.
Yeah, I noticed that this time too. I didn't notice that before, but definitely this time. I was like, man, they actually give away a lot here.
Yeah, the entire beginning sequence is also repeated in the ending. So I felt like it's been done in other movies before, but it stood out to me and I really liked it. The other thing I would say about the intro is they build up into this whole intro and then go into a actual intro song. And the entire time, throughout that entire song and throughout the actual beginning of the movie, it feels like a normal romantic comedy anime.
Yes, it feels very Japanese to me.
It feels so Japanese romantic comedy anime. I mean, the intro song, yes, the string comes back later in the story, but they have this red string that just wraps around the two main characters throughout the entire thing. And I don't know how much you know about this, but a red string is traditionally viewed as a red string that binds two people together as they are fated for each other kind of feel.
Okay. I didn't get that.
Originally, I think it comes from a Chinese root, but in Japan, they have visual imagery. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. An image that is used very often to describe two people who are either destined for each other or that they belong together, is that there is a red string basically tying them together. In Japan, they said that it's tied on their pinkies. Apparently in China, it's like on their ankles or something like that. All this to say, this entire intro sequence shows these two people together, and the entire feel you're getting is, this is a romantic comedy, or this is a romance movie. This is about their relationship. And even the feels from the beginning, if you had never seen the movie before that point, you're thinking, oh, this is a movie all about these two characters' relationship. And it is, but there's more to it.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, yeah. Even soon after that, there's a bit of foreshadowing right away, too, where just after her stuff in the shrine, she comes down and says she wants to be a handsome Tokyo boy in her next life, right?
Yeah.
I guess that might not be... Yeah, it's foreshadowing, I guess. But you don't quite get that that's what's happening. Even still at that point, you're not sure what's going on. You do start at a switch, but then you go to another day fairly quickly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much right at the beginning. You have clearly the boy is in the girl's body because it is a normal teenage boy's reaction to waking up and finding himself in a girl's body.
Yes, the normal reaction for that.
I mean, if you were a teenage boy and you woke up in a girl's body, what is the first thing that people would probably do?
Only once. Only once. He did it only once.
He only did it once. And then it just immediately does that time skip to the very next day. Yeah. What I also found very interesting was the fact that it wasn't until 30 minutes into the entire movie that they finally realized that they've been switching bodies and it's a real thing.
Yes. I mean, we as viewers definitely realize it earlier, but not terribly much earlier, I guess. Yeah, it is interesting that they don't realize it. I guess they're still thinking that it's a dream still, right?
Yeah, it's a dream, all these things, and then, yeah, it's 30 minutes into the whole thing where they are suddenly go, oh, am I actually switching bodies?
I did like the reveal of the fact that it was 3 years difference. I liked that reveal. There was no hint of that until it actually happened, I don't think. Unless I missed all the hints.
No, the only things that were really big hints towards it were the foreshadowing in the beginning, from what I could see. Oh, by the way, I have to ask this before we proceed any further. Subs or dubs?
Oh, definitely subtitles.
Okay.
I don't even have a dubbed version, I don't think.
I am firmly in the category of always subtitled over dubbed. So I just wanted to make sure because there's a couple of things that will come up later that deal with that.
Oh, okay.
So as for what you asked earlier was whether there was any foreshadowing about the 3-year difference. No, there really, from what I saw, there really wasn't any foreshadowing of that 3-year difference until it was revealed. The only thing is everybody's looking forward to this comet.
Yeah.
And in his world, in Tokyo, nobody's mentioning.
Yeah, there's no mention of it.
That's the really only other thing.
You'd have to catch the absence of that to really see that there's a difference.
Which, by the way, on a completely side note, naming your comet Tiamat made me laugh so much.
I didn't get that. What is that named after?
Tiamat is actually, I don't know where it originally comes from, but where I always originally learned it from was Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, okay.
This is, once again, going to show exactly how nerdy I am. To break it down as easy as I can, there is a good dragon god and a bad dragon god. The good dragon god is named Bahamut, who is basically the metallic dragon god who is supposed to be this really good dragon. Anyway, then there is a chromatic dragon god. Her name is Tiamat, and that is basically the evil dragon god is the best way to put it.
Okay.
It's used a lot in Final Fantasy games, in RPGs, where you'll see mentions of both Bahamut and Tiamat in various forms. But that is at least where I originally learned it from was in Dungeons and Dragons. That being a completely side note, to get the official statement, Tiamat is a supremely strong, powerful, 5-headed draconic goddess. That is about as clear as I can make it. But back to the movie, actually.
Because one of my first thoughts, again, even this time, because I had actually forgotten some of it, I was like, my first was like, oh my goodness, they're going to have problems with their relationships. But then, of course, I had forgotten. But yes, she does write everything down in his phone, and he writes all what he's done in her notebook, and they've made their little sets of rules.
Which, by the way, I paused on some of the rules just to see if I could catch what they were. For her rules was do not bathe, do not look, do not touch. Which, no, rule number 3, he definitely broke. Rule number 2, he definitely broke. Rule number 1, I have no idea.
Yeah.
For his rules, he said, don't spend money frivolously, which she broke. Watch your dialect.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And don't be late.
Okay, because she's late to school and late to work all the time.
Yeah. Those were the 3 that I was able to get. I'm sure there were more, but kanji.
Yeah.
Kanji is difficult. And I am not studying as hard as I should be.
Well, speaking of the kanji, it did seem like they were trying to teach us two Japanese phrases or words here. One is the twilight, right? Kataware doki.
Yeah.
Kataware doki.
Yeah.
Being twilight.
I've also heard the witching hour.
Okay, interesting. So being more magical, right?
Yep.
The other one being musubi, the connecting.
Yeah, I also found that when they talked about musubi and basically said that that was an old way of saying their god's name, was what they had said at one point, or at least that's how I interpreted it, based on what I was hearing and what I was reading from the subtitles. But yeah, musubi, I mean, it's to tie something together, to bind it. And so this entire story is this binding of these two people together through time even. Mm-hmm. Also, on another thing with the Japanese things that I always found interesting was watashi and ore.
Yeah, that was good.
When Mitsuha, when she originally is in Taki's body and begins talking to his friends, watashi, and then she switches to watakushi, and then to boku, and then to ore.
Yeah, she goes through every single one to get to the right one. That is quite interesting.
Because many people in Japanese will use different words for the word I, and based on which one you use, it has a different connotation. And then, of course, certain words and certain phrases and certain ways of speaking are usually pretty feminine. And so watching them, in addition to her dialect, the way that she said things, which was definitely very strong at the beginning of the movie. But as she progressed through the movie, it actually, I don't know if you noticed this, but even when she was herself, it softened.
Yeah, I didn't notice it because I wasn't as much listening. I was listening to some, but not enough to pick up differences in dialect, that's for sure.
Yeah, her dialect softened through the movie. Not like a super great deal, but like strong enough that you could tell that she had practiced not sounding like she was from her hometown. I also found like some of the things that they got really angry about was very funny. Like, and it's normal things that you would think as a guy or as who I am, I would think this way. But if I were to suddenly find myself in a girl's body, I wouldn't be thinking about this thing. Like skirts. He like leans back and puts his leg up in a skirt at one point, like he's just sitting on a chair, and her friend just starts freaking out at her. One of those things that they do really well with this movie is they definitely do show a progression of time in addition to everything else, because, and not through actual passing of time, but through they're getting used to being in the other's body. Her accent softens. He acts a little bit more appropriate for a female, as in he doesn't put up his leg to show the entire class what's up his skirt. Through their relationship, through spending time in each other's worlds, they both changed. I would actually say throughout the entire movie, they kind of changed for the better. And I think that was one of those things that's really, really good and really well done throughout this entire movie, is that relationship is just well done. Because for me, when I see this movie, it is a relationship drama, true, but it is also a mystery. And it is also a suspense story.
Yeah, trying to get it all done in time.
And I think that's why this is such a good story. At its core, it is a relationship drama, but it has so much more than that.
And one of the interesting things, about the relationship, because I think this time I sat back with a little less suspension of disbelief compared to Passengers even. Like Passengers, they're sitting there talking together. We discussed how he read all her body of work, but this one, they never sat face to face until the time on the mountain. Well, never discussed anything face to face until the time on the mountain, right? I mean, there's the time she went back and saw him 3 years ago, but not until they were together at the top of the mountain in that twilight time did they see each other face to face. So, could they love each other? And I think maybe in answering my own question, I think yes, because they could see the effect. They could see everything about themselves. I mean, yes, they could see their own reflection, but they could picture the person based on everything about their personality, right? They could see how their friends reacted to them. They could see how they organized their lives. They could see all the important things, I think, without getting carried away with being next to each other.
And I think that's exactly it, is because they are experiencing the other person's life. Mm-hmm. They are getting to know their friends. They are being shown this person through their friends. They are being shown this person through their interactions in notebooks and diaries, but more so through living the very life of the other person, putting themselves into that other person's shoe. That is what makes them know that person on such a deep level.
Yeah, it makes it work. I think this time, though, I got a little bit more frustrated with the fact at the end that he keeps forgetting the name. And I think they were playing on the dream at the beginning, because at the beginning of the movie, they know each other's name fairly well. But I guess it's within the time limit reason of, okay, they still remember. But I think at the end of the movie, I was like, oh, come on, you still can't remember the name?
Yeah, but then you think about the fact that the very, very beginning of the movie, he's talking about he's always been looking for somebody and can't remember their name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's basically setting it back up for the ending.
Mm-hmm. So it's a minor gripe. It is not a big problem. It's one of the rules of the universe, I guess. That, yes, it feels like a dream.
Everyone will forget.
It feels like a dream, so it'll act like a dream. You will forget it. After a certain amount of time, it will all fade away. It's one of the rules.
And I feel like I'm okay with that, because it is, in that world, that is the rule. Mm-hmm. That is the rule that has been set down. That is the rule that is consistent, and it always happens that way. Yep. The only reason that it wasn't that way for them through most of the movie is because they wrote down notes for each other so that they could experience or read about what happened in the day that they weren't themselves.
Mm-hmm. Or it was in close enough proximity to the event that they could just still remember.
Yeah, it was still within that time frame that they were doing this.
Mm-hmm. And then the last few scenes were months later, right? I mean,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said at some point that it's been a while since he'd switched. So,
oh yeah,
6 months or something like that.
Yeah, it was months, but yeah, I think that's why it was like that, though, is because they have that. It's still within the same time frame. Mm-hmm. The grandma said, "Oh yeah, this happened to me when I was a kid, and it happened to your mom when she was a kid," but yeah, we eventually forgot about it.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. So I do wonder. I'm guessing the grandmother and the mother didn't meet up with their people they switched with. So it was an interesting thing that this was hereditary. So is that a hereditary thing of the Miyamizu Jinja
family?
Temple ladies? Yeah.
Yeah. That would be probably where I would end up going with what they were thinking, mm-hmm. because this is the family that's always served this shrine, and this is their connection with this local deity. Mm-hmm. So I would say that would probably be because they are the Miko of that shrine.
Mm. What kind of statement is the movie making with the grandmother's statement that traditions are passed down without the meanings? Is the movie saying that that's a bad thing, that we shouldn't have these transitions, or is it just saying that this is the fact of life here?
I don't think it's saying it's a bad thing. I felt like it was saying these things happen. Sometimes we lose the meanings along the way, but the act of doing this is still important. Mm. Sometimes we might not always understand why we do something, but that doesn't take away from it the importance that it be done.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it might have taken on new meaning for the town since the tragedies anyway.
Yeah.
This is one of my first, I think, real anime movies that I've seen. I actually saw this before I've seen Totoro, so...
What?
This was one of the first real animation movies I've seen for a Japanese anime. So one of the things that struck me about this movie, and I've seen it in Totoro and Miyazaki stuff too, is the realism that the animation is portraying, trying to get you to feel like you're there, as opposed to just showing you that you're there. It struck me in the first scene with the breakfast, the breaking of the egg, the opening of the rice cooker, all of that stuff. Just, okay, this is what it feels like to be here. I'm not just doing a wide shot of breakfast. I liked that a lot. I liked how this movie played with focus in the animation. Not everything is 100% in focus. There was animation out of focus, and there was animation in focus. I don't know how they did that. Did they draw everything in focus and then blur things later? I don't know, but that was it was quite a nice effect, and I noticed it in a bunch of places. One spot I really noticed it was a wide shot in the grandmother's house, and I forget, it was grandmother sitting across the table from somebody. I think it was toward the end, so it must have been Mitsuha. And the tatami, it was out of focus in the very close foreground, but still in focus near the camera, and then still in focus toward the grandmother and Mitsuha. So there was a long depth of field, but this still was out of focus in the very foreground. So it was just a neat thing to see that even there.
My feeling for that is the way they do that, and the reason they do that makes it feel like it is.
It gives it the real life feel, right?
It gives it a reality, a depth of reality, where if you don't do that, it feels a little bit more flat.
Well, and I think there was a bunch of things that made it feel very real, like the signs on the train doors being very accurate. The titles of the Japanese news anchors and how they stood and acted felt very accurate. Like there was some things that almost said, wow, this is not drawn, this is real. Oh, wait a minute, it's still animated. It was pretty dead on. I liked the emphasis on feet and doors. I mean, obviously, Yotsuha closed the door every morning. But there was often where they're going off to school and we don't see them leave the house. We see the door opening. Quite interesting. Or you see the feet running down the stairs. There's a lot of emphasis on that. And I just think that was fun. It was a neat shot.
I guess it feels like if you're doing a shot like that, it feels like you're showing movement. You're showing that sort of tone rather than, all right, we're showing them walking out the door.
And one of the places where this stood out, it's not feet and doors, but where they're showing the tone, I feel, is when Mitsuha was rolling down the hill after tripping on the pavement.
Ooh, yeah, that was a rough fall.
You see her rolling, but you don't see her stop. They cut to the grass. You see it cut to the grass, and as she hits the last hit, a bug flies off. And then you cut to her from above. So, oh, this is a big deal. Nature even got hurt, right? Kind of thing. Or nature shook somehow. That was a neat feel. They did it in a bunch of places.
I just felt like all of the animation they did, they tried to give it a depth of realism. It was just very, very well done. Every character, you could tell that every character basically had, even the background characters, they took time to develop this person. They took time to design that person. There weren't too many people who were just in the background and quickly jotted a face on them. You could tell that they had designed these people.
Just a quick question. Was the guy at the restaurant that Taki meets and the guy drives him up the hill, was he earlier in the movie at all?
He might have been, but I didn't notice him. Yeah. I was trying to find him throughout the movie, but I might have just missed him.
One of the things I really liked also about the animation was they did it a few times with time-lapse. I really liked the time-lapse animation.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it added more realism to the film, and it made it feel, well, again, it helped with the passage of time.
Yeah.
That it was trying to convey.
It almost felt like they were animating in the way that a camera would record.
Yeah.
That is the best way I can describe how the animation style of this movie really did.
They did a 3D helicopter shots a few times too, especially on top of the mountain they did it. And I'm wondering if they used computers for that and modeled it in 3D, but I don't know, maybe not.
There were a few that maybe could have been computer generated shots, but a lot of it seemed, I have no experience in the animating field, so I have no ground to stand on making any kind of judgment on that.
But anyway, those were, again, remembering my impressions from the first time I watched it, those were some big ones. Like, yeah, this is very interesting animation. I mean, now that I've seen other Japanese animes, not too many, but I've seen a few other Japanese animes, well, and just seeing stuff around Japan too. Like, they definitely do the Japanese mouths every once in a while, the big reactions, But that's not the whole film. That's emphasizing those points, right? And then you get back to the regular character drawings the rest of the time. So I think that was kind of fun.
I was just going to say that I really think that it's a as a whole is a great movie. It's just a excellent movie that tells the story very beautifully. I really caught more and more of, I tend to pay attention to language and word choice a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those things that really stood out to me this time were the things like how many times things were related to that tying or that musubi. How many times did you notice things with that word choice that softened throughout the movie? Those sort of things really stood out to me this time, and they just made the characters feel more alive to me. I think that's also where I really come down to is these were really well-developed characters. This was a very well-developed story, and the animation style is just beautifully done. For me, I can't help but recommend a movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen my fair share of anime. I've seen my fair share of animated films in general, but this is definitely one that if a person hadn't seen it, I would definitely recommend that they see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had no way to see it, I would lend them my DVD.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think this, along with Passengers that we watched earlier, I think this fits into this is a very interesting situation. How would you react?
Mm-hmm.
I like about both of these movies. I like that.
And I feel like the way that they reacted was very believable.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the girl in the boy's body who suddenly realizes, I have to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what is her number one reaction going to be?
And the girl who wants to be in a Tokyo cafe her whole life, right? Just, loving every moment of it. While the guys are looking at the rafters, she's looking at all the people, the dogs, the menus.
Seeing the pancakes and going, ooh, I could buy this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you suddenly realize what the other person has done to your life, those sort of freak out moments are very believable. At one point, she's yelling into her diary, basically, why are these people confessing their love for me? I've never developed this relationship. Why is this happening?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And those sort of things. And I mean, seriously, if somebody suddenly took over your life and screwed up all of your interpersonal relationships, what do you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for me, that's the sort of things that I point to and go, these are very believable characters. They are not one-dimensional. And I think that's the big thing for me is when you have really well-developed characters, I tend to love that story. Mm-hmm. Because so many times you read a story or you watch a film where a character is got one bit. Mm-hmm. I love that this doesn't have that this has a depth.
Yep, definitely.
I think that pretty much sums it up for me.